Hi, everybody. Russ on the West Ham Network. Hope you're all safe and well. Mr. Blubberman in the house, as I've been affectionately called on Twitter. But I don't care. Real man can cry. They can cry whenever they want. Obviously, the euphoria of the game, euphoria of actually winning a trophy, first one for 43 years, first European trophy since 1965. As there's been outcry. There's been outcry about Declan Rice and about comments made by David Sullivan about Declan Rice's availability in the summer. And you know what? We're doing a live show. And I've got an opinion. It's not going to be an popular opinion, I'll be honest. And I know exactly what people say. Oh, it's because you weren't from the club. It's not at all. It's maybe a pragmatic opinion, and I think it's looking at past issues we've had before, particularly in the summer about Declan Rice. So what happened was, and again, some context. People see things, they see things on Twitter, and they see comments, and and obviously it's all over the social media and on YouTube and everything at the moment. Basically, it was an interview that Jim White did. So Jim White from Talksport did an interview interviewing David Sullivan, who we know is a confidant of himself. That they are regularly in conversation, and he asked the question in the same way that Jules from BT Sport asked Declan Rice the question, just as he'd lifted he lifted the trophy? Yeah, I think he just lifted the trophy about whether he was leaving, which again may be a slightly strange thing. People say, "Oh, give us our time, let us enjoy it." Literally, BT Sport did it when he was on the pitch, so it's not something which hasn't been done prior. It was done by Jules, and Deck was very diplomatic, as you would imagine, but didn't say he's staying. Didn't say he's staying. Just I love the club. I got a 2-year contract, which is actually all true. And he does love the club, and he does have a 2-year left on his deal. Now, Jim asked, and we'll talk about that in a bit more. Talk to Jim a lot more detail, I think, as well, because I think there's a bit more. People have gone, he's Sullivan, blah blah blah. I don't think he did anything which we didn't know, and I don't think he had a situation. I mean, again, I've had this on Twitter and WhatsApp, and people have said, "Oh, yeah, you will say that." No, I'm being a bit pragmatic here. Actually, football is now 100 miles an hour game, and literally, it's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and you can't rest on your laurels, and you cannot rest on your laurels. And I know it's frustrating because we've just won our first trophy, 43 years, our first European trophy since the 1960s, but we've fucked up this year already. We in the summer last year, we fucked up. And we'll talk about why that happens in a minute. So basically, Jim White said to he asked him the question, Mr. Sullivan is, and again, listen to the whole thing. Don't just don't just read it or listen to the whole thing. Give it, but it's like the Antonio podcast, gives it all context a little bit. Mr. Sullivan, do you expect this to be Declan Rice's last game for West Ham? And he said, probably yes. Probably. We've promised him he can go. His heart is set on going, and we've offered him. We don't want him to go. We've offered him a 200 grand a week contract 18 months ago, which he turned down. And I expect bids to probably start coming through from today. Now, break that all down. First thing he said, we promised Declan Rice that he could go. We know, as fans, there's been a gentleman's agreement in place for Declan Rice. If the club get the valuation they want for Declan Rice, he will be gone. We will let him go. We will not reject offers of about, I think it's 120 million or 100 million, something like that. So that's fair enough. There has been, so that nothing has changed, regardless of whether that trophy was lifted or not. Nothing has changed from if that interview was done 48 hours ago. No difference at all. Now, he says we offered him a 200 grand, which they did, and he turned it down, which he did. Because part of the reason was because he offered him, I think it was stupid, to 6-year contracts, something ridiculous, like something like Newcastle do now, although Chelsea do that, then they 7.5-year contracts, things like that, which he did turn down. We don't want him to go. We don't want him to go. He's our captain. So anything, but I think because of people have just flown off the handle about this, and I think personally, actually a little bit of perspective. We are already 3 weeks behind our Premier League rivals in terms of building. Decisions about Declan Rice, decisions about David Moyes have been put off until after the Europa Conference League. That's what we said. We said we weren't even going to accept any bids or talk about any bids about Declan Rice from the club to another club based until after the Europa Conference League, which is finished. It finished yesterday. And so now he expects bigs to start coming through, which probably makes sense. Deck said it's out of my hands. It is out of his hands. He only goes if the club get the money they want for him. He's not going for anything less. Now, why people say, oh, we've got to give it a few days, give it a week, give it a couple of weeks. We cannot afford that. We need decisions made on Declan Rice and David Moyes almost immediately, because pre-season, they're off to fucking Australia in a month's time. What happened this year? Well, the transfer window that's just gone. We bought 8 players in £200 million, £180 million of money, or whatever it is. We bought them far too late. None of them had a decent pre-season. None of them got integrated. It took Paqueta 6 months to get into to get the groove going. Obviously, again, was injured. We bought in Tilo Kira, Skamaka, and we bought players far too late. If Declan Rice, because of not only the position he plays in, but also he's integral to the West Ham squad and the team morale and things like that. If he does go, he needs gone sharpish, because we need to get his replacement in. We need to get them embedded. We need them on doing a full pre-season as well. So when it comes to August, we're not waiting 3 or 4 months for him to get into the groove, or them to get in the groove. They buy more than one player in that position, which I think they should do. I don't think there's a like-for-like replacement. So that needs to be sorted straight away, because otherwise what will happen is, and I can bet my bottom dollar what would happen is, we're waiting. He goes in the last week in August. We've got £100 million to spend. We spend it very, very unwisely. We probably buy someone in who may be right, but the trouble is they've got no pre-season. They've got no fitness behind them. A bit like when we bought Skamaka in. We bought him far too late. He didn't have a pre-season, and he was then not starting at the beginning. And then we had the issues we've had within this season in terms of integrating him into the side. Now, that's okay for a striker, because, we can bring in Antonio. We don't have another Declan Rice, so we have to do this now. And we have to rip off the Band-Aid. If it's going to be ripped off, we need to rip it off. If it's staying on for another year, fine. Let's build around him. Let's plan. Let's forward plan and look at what. So as soon as that transfer goes, wherever he goes next year, if he goes next summer for half the money, then we know who's coming in. Someone like Freddie Potts has got another year to progress. For example, I imagine you're going to see Freddie and Divine being a lot more integrated into the squad next season, I'm sure. So that needs to be sorted. So actually, I don't think it's when people are going, oh, give us a time. We haven't got time. If we rest on our laurels, it happens, and then we'll be up shit creek without a paddle again. Football is, as I said, is 100 miles an hour business, and it's always the next thing. I mean, Jude Bellingham's signing for Real Madrid, looks like today, tomorrow. That's then Borussia Dortmund got £100 million to spend. Who are they going to get? They're going to get Gundogan. They want by him, get him back in. Obviously he came from Dortmund, I think, to Man City. It would be a homecoming, maybe, potentially, if he doesn't go to Barcelona. Then, okay, Man City needs someone. And so it's going to start moving. And it's not going to be, and it's not Sullivan's fault, in my opinion. It's not his fault. Now, you will probably disagree with me, and that's fair enough. But what you've got to realise is, and people go, oh, why did he do the interview? Why did Jim White ask him the question? Because this man here, Jim White, I know the man personally. He's a lovely bloke. He's a lovely fella. But this man is paid a lot of money by Talksport to get people listening, next week and next day and the next show and the next show, and to get numbers. There's been, because of that one question, there has been blanket news coverage, all featuring Talksport. This man is probably going to get a pay rise from Talksport tonight because of that exact reason. And what's going to happen? People are going to tune in tomorrow. That's why I asked the question. Jim asked the question, and Sullivan answered it in a pragmatic way. Maybe it could be the worst thing he could have done is said Declan Rice is going nowhere, because we all know that's bollocks. We all know eventually he'll go somewhere, and actually then he'll be flat-faced lying at people. So I think sometimes a little bit of context needs. Sometimes we have, as I said, this is not and this is nothing to do with the fact that I work at a club at all. This is just literally, sometimes I think when things are said and people go off on the handle, sometimes I like to just step back and have a listen and think about it. And when you listen to the whole interview, there was other questions, but the first question was the main question, which everyone pulled out, was the Declan Rice question. And I know the comments are going to say, oh, Russ, the same decision needs to be made about Moyes as well. If Moyes is staying, right, okay, you've got to back him. We've got to progress. We've got to move on. We never kick on. If Moyes is going, he's gone because he's got to go, because now we need decisions are made about a new manager who needs to be appointed, a new manager. There's decisions on players. We know the likes of some players are staying or going dependent on whether the manager stays or not. Someone like Skarmaka, I think if Moyes stays, he's gone. And that's the information we've been given. So, those two decisions need to be made straight away. But the Declan Rice one, I know it's just coming out because everyone has gone on, gone crazy. It's no new news about it. There's no new news about it at all. And it maybe should be a rant rather than a daily show, to be honest, thinking about it. But regardless of that, I think sometimes we football fans, obviously we're on a massive high from yesterday. We all still are. We're all still a bit, don't really know how to expect and how to act because we've never done it before, particularly me. Some people older in the tooth, you have all this experience, maybe 1980. God forbid, 65 as well, for Big Jim, for Big Jim Baker. But for me, I don't know how. And everyone's going, oh, it's. I think I think some people say, oh, it shattered my dreams. No, it hasn't. Declan Rice was, 80% gone to 20% not gone. Nothing's changed. And all Sullivan was doing was answering a question that was posed to him by someone whose job it is as a journalist, but as a promoter of a radio station, to get people talking and get people listening and get people retweeting and criticizing and that type of thing. And that's what he's done. Talksport is all over it today. He's done a great job and we've all fallen for it. And it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And sometimes we just got to say, it's just noise. It's just noise. And actually, if you break it down, all he said, everything he said is true. Everything Sullivan said, we don't want him gone. We've promised he can go. If we get the money, he's got his heart set on going. That gentleman's agreement would not have been in place unless Declan Rice went to the board and said, I'm looking to leave. West Ham wouldn't go, Dec, do you want to leave? Actually, we're going to let you go. We're going to let you go. Declan Rice has gone to the board and said, I want to go. And there was a gentleman's agreement in place for that to happen. And whether that was set this summer, I don't know exactly when that was set, but it was something that we all know. So let's enjoy that. Don't worry about David Sullivan's comments. Enjoy the parade if you're going. Enjoy the fact that we, Divine and Barman's got more trophies than Harry Kane. Enjoy the fact that Freddie Potts has got more trophies than Heung-min Son. Enjoy it, but don't worry when people come, and don't fly off the handles and stuff like that. Sometimes, I know football's a very emotive game, and sometimes I think a little bit of perspective, and listen to the whole thing. It's like the Antonio podcast. Listen to the whole Antonio podcast and then make a judgment rather than on clips on social media. That's the issue. It's a problem with social media. Things can be clipped and the worst bits can be revealed. And actually, if you listen to the whole thing, you might change your opinion on things. But anyway, rant over. Much love. We are champions. Incidentally, 1st of September is the group draw, with the final being at Dublin this year. And even if, worse forbid, we finish, say, 3rd in our group stage, I think the final is in Athens for the Europa Conference League next year. So take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Much love, my friends. And